Hi, it's Chaplain Michele. Today we're going to be talking about as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So let's hop right into it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So in our society, there are a number of things. There are books, there are different iterations of media that relate to this, which is actually a scripture. But the concept, so everything is spiritual. If you've listened to any of my posts, everything is spiritual. One, please don't be distracted by the concept of man specifically being mentioned here. In many instances in Scripture and other places, the intent is to convey the difference between deity and humanity. So compared to deity, humanity, in this instance, as a man, as a human thinketh, so is he, or so is that individual or that person. So I want to start there. But what do you think about? What is this, whether you subscribe to this thought process from Scripture or from some other lens, what exactly does this mean to you, and how does it apply to us today? Because when you think about how we operate almost on autopilot, here's my question. So if as we think, and I'm going to talk about the word think because it's not just an intellectual thought. It's not just an intellectual thinking. It's thinking that encompasses believing or believing that encompasses thinking. When you think about or consider the spirit-soul connection as the essence of a human being, then, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But what does this mean to you? If, as we think, so are we, then my question becomes, if we're not thinking, what are we? As we think, as we believe, so are we. We are what we think. We are what we believe. If we're not thinking, if we're not believing, then what are we? And we live in a world that's designed to get us not to believe or think anything. Even now, there are ways that you are being taught not to think, when in fact you were made to think. You were made for belief. You were made for the eternal, the supernatural, not just the natural. Everything is spiritual. When the body falls off, the spirit and soul will remain. That means that there has to be a development process, a growth process in each and every one of us taking place each and every moment of our lives, that at the end of the day or at the end of this period of our existence counts for something or accounts for something. So if we're being constantly entertained, and I mean constantly, I'm not saying, I'm not talking about in an extreme way that we can't be entertained, but if we are being entertained to the point of no longer considering the fact that entertainment is part of what often drains or nullifies or puts to sleep our ability to think. That's what entertainment is. It's about keeping us from thinking. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's self-care. But self-care is also being aware of when I am no longer actively engaged in a process or a thought process or an innovation or self-improvement or any of these things that I was created for. If I am only living for this life in a way that makes me numb to what is to come eternally, then it becomes an issue. That's the issue that we have to face. We don't realize we have taken on such a posture of this being the life we need to live, when in fact this life is really meant to teach us what it means to be human, one, and what it means to have our senses tuned into spiritual things, how we engage, who we engage with, how we treat one another. And this is particularly important if there is a faith base that believes in a spiritual being as a supreme being. And I can't speak to that from a chaplain perspective, not from a clergy perspective. From a chaplain perspective, I recognize that everything is spiritual. We are all spiritual. It doesn't matter necessarily. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter as if it's not significant. It doesn't matter what our belief is, but it all starts spiritually. So our belief dictates or illuminates our soul. Our spirit illuminates what we believe in our core, which is our spirit. Our intuition comes out of our spirit. That is a spiritual thing. Our belief informs our souls, our respective souls. Then our souls, the soul, you've heard of the seat of government. You know, at different points in history, the seat of government, the county seat where governing takes place. So our soul is the seat of government of our individual existence, of our beings. We are responsible. So after the point in time when we become individual or independent, and we are individuals, but independent, we are responsible. We're placed into someone's care, and hopefully that care is edifying and uplifting and encouraging, not diminishing or destructive. And we're placed in someone's care, but at the point in time where we become independent of that care, we also then become responsible for what we do with the spirit, soul, and body resources that we are given. That starts with us. Then if someone else is also placed into our care, we are responsible for us and for them as we think, which is really as we believe, so are we. And we've gone a bit off the rails because we always associate, rather than doing the etymology and looking at the etymology of a word, scripturally or otherwise, the thinking is the process. It's the spiritual process that leads to the intellectual process. Spirit illuminates the soul. The soul then is what drives speech and behavior. So when you're trying to change your life, or you're believing in changing your life for the better, you have to start with looking at what you believe. As we believe, as you believe, so you think, then are you. So it's 3 parts, not just 2, because we are 3-part beings: spirit, soul, and body. The body will fall away. The spirit and the soul will carry a memory into eternity. It will carry into eternity, which is why it's important for our spiritual maturity, for the development and the growth that we see physically. And we're so caught, and we actually live backwards. We actually live in reverse of what we're supposed to live. We are at least supposed to be congruent. And what we find, the way we have challenges in our own lives, in our own homes, our neighborhoods, our communities, our cities, our states, our regions, our nations, our countries, our world, is because there is so much incongruence about who we are. And I don't mean externally, what you can see. I mean because we don't understand the fact that everything is spiritual first, every single thing. I use the example frequently. You don't have to believe in gravity. Gravity existed before you existed. The reason you're here, so we talk a lot, people talk about a lot about manifestation. We are manifestations. Time is eternity manifested. Time is not separate from eternity. It's part of eternity. They don't run parallel. It's the same. It's a continuum. And time is that part where things become manifested, where people become manifested. History is not to be objectified. History is where different things show up and different activities take place as we think. As we believe, so we think, then we speak, and then we behave. It's all of that. Not one or the other. It's not multiple choice. And so we don't have to believe it for it to be the case. But when we believe it, we have the opportunity to live out the fullness of our potential, our greatest and highest and best purpose, transcendent living, transformational living, leaving truly people, places, and things that cross our paths, or that whose paths we cross, better than we found them. Not because we have convinced ourselves of something through the practice of intellectual bypassing all of the, or attempting to bypass the spiritual pieces, because the spiritual pieces cannot be bypassed. When we understand we're spirit first, then when we do our self-inventory, we can look at, okay, well, what do I believe? If I want to be a better person, but I keep acting like something or saying things that I don't want to say, I keep thinking things I don't want to think, how do I fix that? Then you've got to look at what you believe, because your belief is driving what you think. And if you don't govern your thought process, if you don't understand what you believe, then you cannot govern your thought process. If you cannot govern your thought process, which also includes your soul, houses your emotions, your intellect, your ego, all of those things, as you believe, so you think, soul, mind, then so are you. That's what you appear as. That's what you present yourself as. So we look at each other and we say, well, how can you say this and act like this? It's because there is an incongruence. It's a brokenness that's created by a spiritual condition. And unless we understand this, we'll continue to go through life thinking that, oh, okay, this is just how it is. Well, no, it's never been just how it is. There is an active, intentional process. First, there's an understanding we have to have. And then there is an intentional process that we have to engage in. Because at a minimum, each of us will be responsible for what we did with the spirit, soul, body resources we've been given just to us. That doesn't count other people. So if we're parenting or guardian or caregiving in any way, that's not yet counting the care that we give to someone else. We are at a minimum responsible for the purpose that we were designed, the ultimate purpose, the greater purpose, the higher purpose, the one that elevates and edifies. At a minimum, each of us is accountable for that. And to the extent that we have been positioned, regardless of what the position is, regardless of the title, regardless of any of that, regardless of the resources, each and every one of us will be responsible then for other people that came into our care. So at a minimum, ourselves, and then for others. So we've got to get this as a human race. We like to talk about races within the human race. But from a spiritual perspective, that's a non-starter. That's not a consideration. Because all of this is a test of our spiritual acumen more than anything. And our understanding that we are right now in eternity. That we are right now living spiritual lives from a perspective that does not necessarily edify us spiritually. We're not headed all the time in the direction that we need to go, and all of us are guilty of it. The question is, what then do we do about it? If, as we believe, so then we think, and then so are we. What are we intentionally doing? Because many of us would say, no, it's someone else's fault or someone else's responsibility, and that's not what the universe sees. If you believe in a higher power, which I do, that's not how it works. There is no objectification of responsibility and purpose. There is no objectification of history. You are history. I am history. It's happening right now. Because these things don't just happen, they come about through us. What we call history is a collection of people that were around when certain things did or did not happen. That is all throughout what we call history. But when we think about history, we don't think about ourselves. And yet we're contributors in one way or another, whether our names ever make it to the history books or not. There is a reason that all of us are together right now in this place on this planet, regardless of who it is, regardless of who we are. And when we begin to think on a greater scale of eternity, not just what's happening now, and the level of accountability we have for our own purpose, and then for others, because we have to give an account for that too. How did we steward the lives we were given and the lives we were entrusted with? That's going to be the question. It's all spiritual. You don't have to believe in gravity. Gravity still exists, whether you believe in it or not. There are certain things related to belief that we don't have to believe. But the fact that we are spiritual first doesn't need our belief. It's just a matter of how we interact with that. What does that look like for us? Then how does it frame our soul? The seat of governance or government for just me. How does what I believe frame what I think? Do I have rule over my own life? Can I control myself? We are a society preoccupied with controlling other people. And yet, the first level of accountability is with our own selves. As a man, as a human thinketh, so are we. So is that individual. So is that person. So who are you? If we're not thinking, if we're always entertained, if we're always blaming. By the way, blame holds no weight in the spiritual realm. There's no such thing as blame. The buck is stopping somewhere. There's no such thing. So whether it's a small act or a large act where we say, hey, well, it was their fault. No, because we've been given options for how we handle those kinds of situations. And so the longer we perpetuate that dialogue, what we're saying, what we're doing is delaying the spiritual growth that's going to be required as we continue to move through life and then transition out of here into eternity proper. Time was given to us because we can't manage eternity. So we need something that we can count. We need something that we can see. And yet, even in being given that, we're taking that for granted. We have the ability to fix so many things. And yet, because we are so myopic in how we think, and because we don't understand the gravity of eternity upon us now, and the gravity of the spiritual responsibilities we have, we're missing the point. We think that we are just bits and pieces just splattered all over the place, just to do whatever we want to do whenever we want to do it. Do we have the capacity for that? Yes, we prove that all the time. But the greater picture is that we are puzzle pieces, each and every single one of us. And each and every single one of us fits here somewhere. And our job with all of us together on this planet at the same moment, regardless of our names, our faces, where we live, where we came from, what we have, what we don't have, we are supposed to be here to make this place better for all. So everyone here has a responsibility in making sure that this place, the earth, the planet, one, that we preserve the planet, the environment in which we live. so that we can do better for ourselves, for our families, but most importantly, for each other and for those that will come after us. We're stewards. We're stewards. And it's a challenge because that's not what our society teaches. That's not how we like to think. We want something that looks immediate. We want something that feels, what? I don't know, divisive. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to fix the things, fix in the best sense. Fix not in a subjective way because this is how you want it, but to fix the brokenness of our lives by becoming the best people we can be. All spiritual. And it starts with being able to do a self-assessment. Everybody has, when it comes to taking responsibility, nobody has any fingers. But when it comes to placing blame, we have 20 fingers. I'm going to say that again. When it comes to taking responsibility, nobody seems to have any fingers to point to themselves anyway. But when it comes to placing blame, which is the adverse or a negative responsibility, we want to place blame. My question is, if you don't acknowledge someone's existence, how can you place blame in a place that you don't even acknowledge? If you consider someone to be less than you or non-existent in your book, how do you even blame for anything? They don't exist. But the higher power is always watching. Always. And in many instances, we have missed the point that our lives are spiritual first. And that's what we need to be drilling down into, not just leaning into. We've got to drill down into that. Because whether we live long lives according to mortality rates or short lives, regardless of the cause, regardless of where we've come from, at the end of the day, we're still transitioning out of here individually, not in groups, individually, and we're going to have to give an account to eternity, which is, I promise you, much longer than any of us can imagine. We keep trying, but it can't happen because we weren't made for that. What we were made for is to be able to identify the spirit, soul, and body resources we have right now that we can use to build each other up. As we think, as we believe, so we think, then are we. What do you believe? And what you believe can't be based on what somebody else believes. It has to be based on your interaction, your spiritual understanding. It's a process of maturity that we can see if we have a newborn who doesn't properly develop in the physical sphere, realm, then we understand or believe there to be something wrong with that child, that infant. And yet, the greatest level of development that can occur is spiritual, and yet we have so many people who are not developing spiritually because that's not what we tell them. That's not what we teach. That's not what we share with each other. We don't come to each other out of a place of spiritual edification, which is what this life is really about. Well, I don't know why I'm here. What's my purpose? Is to become better, the person you were designed to be, which is along with the rest of us. We weren't meant to be trying to knock each other off the cliff. We were meant to help each other find ways, all of us, not just to make it up the mountain, but to make it over the mountains of life together, so that when we do transition out of this time, eternity manifested, we can say that we helped each other make it. Not that I had to take from you to get what I needed. That's not how this works. That's not what we get credit for. How do I take my little and make it a lot? By giving it to you. And for those of you that have a lot, how do you make it even more? By giving it. Taking is not receiving. Receiving is different than taking. As we believe, so spirit, so we think, so we feel, so we are egotistical, so we, right? Our psyche, our ego, emotions, intellect, soul. As we think, as we believe, so we think, spirit, soul, then body, speech, behavior, how we treat each other. If you can govern your thoughts, if you can govern yourself, you won't have a problem in general becoming the very best of yourself. We should not be a threat to one another because there is space here for every single one of us. We just don't understand it because we don't understand the spiritual principles that are at work. There is not a high, there is not the high, what I refer to, or who I refer to as a higher power, does not put people here that can't be cared for 100% of 100%. What we live on in this society is the concept of scarcity. There is no scarcity. There's just distribution issues. And when we understand that whether we have a lot or a little, the challenge is still the same. The charge is still the same. It's still the same, even though it looks different. We all are still going to have to answer the same call at some point in time. What did you do with what you had while you were here? How did you treat the people that crossed your path? How did you treat those people that you didn't even know? Who took responsibility? Did you take responsibility? We do have a responsibility. Every single one of us. And yes, I'll go back to my original point. I will sit down and watch a movie in a heartbeat just to kind of get things off my mind. But I also know when it's time to get up and take responsibility and resume the work that I believe I was put here to do, that it may not even make a hill of beans to you. But the work that I believe is contributing to my own spiritual growth and development so that I can continue to give something positive back into the world. Even if only one person hears this, then that's what I needed to do. Even if only this only helps one person, then that's what I needed to do. So this is not a downer about entertainment. It's about knowing what our true purposes are, and that is to live transformed, transcendent lives where we all come together to solve the challenges of humanity together, where we all help each other because we're still all going to the same place, meaning at some point, every single one of us, the physical body is going to fall away. And how do we escort one another through this journey with dignity and respect and care and honor? What it is we want the most is the thing we need to give the most. Not necessarily money, because that's a whole nother, that's how we think. But it starts spiritually first. If we want love, then we have to be willing to give love. More importantly, receive love. And this is where we get stuck. Because that's not how we teach our relationships. That's not what we show each other. We consider that to be vulnerable when actually that's the strongest position you can have, is a position of love. Because that will truly conquer all. Whether you have financial resources right now or not, As we think, what we believe will illuminate the soul, what we think, what we feel, the emotions. Consider the soul the toll booth, the traffic director. The soul is telling you how to act, how to behave. If you cannot govern your thoughts, if you cannot govern your own thoughts, then it is likely you will not live up to the purpose you were created for. If you cannot govern your own thoughts, you need to check what you believe. If you believe the best things about people, doesn't mean they don't fail us. We all fail. Nobody is perfect. Absolutely no one. But if you believe in the potential of other people and you want to do something to help and to edify, even in the smallest way, even if it's just giving a can of donated goods when you go to the grocery store, but you're having a challenge in your thought process, then that means there's incongruence between what you believe and what's in your soul. Something is unresolved there. And until you get the spirit and the soul in congruence, what you show up as and what you say is going to be a wild card. Some days it'll look great. Other days it'll look like hell. And when you see that and you say, that's not what I meant, that's not what I'm feeling, that's not what I'm thinking, what that means is you have to go back to what you believe. And you have to identify those areas in your life that could be throwing you off. And you have to be willing to forgive. This is a spiritual journey above all. So I'll share more soon. But if you have put your life on autopilot, if you are in a rut, if you are frustrated, if you don't know why you're here, I just gave you a few reasons. I get it. I couldn't talk about it except I had been through it or am going through it. Then it's time for us to get up and really think about the fact that there is the higher purpose for us being here cannot be ascended to unless we are willing to stop being entertained all of the time and learn to re-engage with the gifts and talents and abilities that each of us have been given. Think for yourself. Believe for yourself. Because I promise you, the level of accountability you have is for yourself first, then for everybody that's crossed your path, even if they only crossed your mind. As we believe, our soul or our thoughts are illuminated, and then our behaviors and our speech follow. So it's not just about how we treat one another, it's how we think about one another. And the foundation for that is in what we believe about other people. But if we're going to diminish people, then we can't diminish them and blame them. You can't diminish someone else and blame them, because technically they don't exist to you. We have to learn to love. That is not a position of vulnerability. That is a position of spiritual power that is not meant to be manipulative or controlling. It's meant to be giving and edifying and building and growing and healing and purposeful and transcendent and transformational. We have so much to give and so much to do. And the solutions are right here in our respective hearts, spirit, heart, spirit, what we believe, spirit, soul. That's where we need to focus. And how we start to come together around truly making this world a better place. I don't succeed by diminishing you as another human being. I succeed by building you up. Not because I think it gets me something, but because I believe and I want it to get you something. And when we learn that, when each of us learns that, we will start to see the world become more beautiful than we could have ever imagined. My name is Chaplain Michele. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.